And now that we have talked about the adrenal gland, let's go into a very crucial gland called as the pancreas. The pancreas is a composite heterocrine gland. Heterocrine, it is exocrine as well as endocrine. It is exocrine, it gives out enzymes, pancreatic juice, and it is endocrine, it gives out hormones. And such a gland is called as a heterocrine gland. The endocrine part of the pancreas are called islets of Langerhans, and we had done it in nutrition before. There are about 1 to 2 million islets of Langerhans, which represent only 1 to 2% of the pancreatic tissue. 1 to 2 million islets of Langerhans. 1 to 2 million islets, but only 1 to 2%. In other words, 99% of the pancreas is exocrine. Only 1% are the islets of Langerhans, which are also a big number, 1 to 2 million. They show three types of cells, namely A or alpha cells which secrete glucagon, B or beta cells which secrete insulin, and D or delta cells which secrete somatostatin. So you have alpha cells which secrete glucagon, you have beta cells which secrete insulin, and you have delta cells which secrete somatostatin. What are the functions of these hormones? What do they exactly do? सबसे पहले you have insulin. Insulin is a peptide hormone made up of amino acids which plays a major role in the maintenance of blood glucose level. Whenever you eat any sugar rich diet, समझो you had potatoes, rice, starch, in the digestive system, it is broken down into glucose. Glucose is absorbed from the intestine into the blood, and your blood glucose level will increase. As soon as the blood glucose level increases, it stimulates your beta cells of the islets of Langerhans, and insulin is released. And insulin stimulates hepatocytes, liver cells, and adipocytes, fat cells, for cellular glucose uptake and utilization. So, your sugar levels are high, you eat in food, your blood sugar levels are high, your beta cells are stimulated, your insulin is given out. Insulin acts on liver cells and fat cells and takes in sugar. तो ग्लूकोज सेल के अंदर चला जाता है. As glucose goes inside the liver cell and fat cell, blood sugar level will decrease. Blood sugar level will decrease. That is called hypoglycemia. So insulin causes hypo decrease, glucose, amia, blood, decrease glucose in the blood, decrease glucose in the blood, which is called as hypoglycemia. So it is the hypoglycemic hormone, and once glucose enters the hepatocytes and adipocytes, insulin helps in the conversion of glucose into glycogen, which is called glycogenesis. So glucose ब्लड से इंसुलिन लिवर सेल और फैट सेल में पहुंचा देता है एडिपोसाइट्स में, एंड देयर इंसुलिन कन्वर्ट्स ग्लूकोज इनटू ग्लाइकोजन. So simple glucose becomes complex glycogen, that is called as glycogenesis. So what has insulin done? It has done glycogenesis, converts glucose into glycogen, and hence it is called as a hypoglycemic hormone. So it is hypoglycemic hormone. And then we have glucagon. Glucagon is a hyperglycemic hormone. It's a hyperglycemic hormone. Insulin was a hypoglycemic hormone. Glucagon is a hyperglycemic hormone. ये कब एक्ट करेगा? समझो आपने बहुत टाइम से कुछ भी खाया नहीं है. So you have not eaten anything, means in your intestine glucose absorbed नहीं हो रहा है, और glucose is utilized everywhere in the body by thyroxine for maintaining your basal metabolic rate for body temperature, and your blood sugar level has decreased. So you are hypoglycemic. Your brain needs a continuous supply of glucose. As soon as glucose level becomes less, alpha cells start giving out glucagon. Alpha cells give out glucagon, which is a peptide hormone. It acts on the liver cells where it stimulates hepatocytes for glycogenolysis. ग्लाइकोजन का lysis, and glycogen gets converted into glucose, and liver में से glycogen becomes glucose, and your blood glucose level will increase. So it is rightly called as the hyperglycemic hormone, and increases level of blood glucose, which is hyperglycemia, hyperglycemic hormone. And if you remember, insulin converts glucose into glycogen, that is glycogenesis, and glucose glycogen में बन जाएगा, blood glucose will become less, so it is called hypoglycemia. Glucagon helps in glycogenolysis, breaks down glycogen into glucose in the liver cells, and glucose is released in the blood. So blood glucose level increases, which is called hyperglycemic hormone. And it also stimulates glucagon, helps in glycogenolysis, breaks down glycogen into glucose, and it also stimulates gluconeogenesis, conversion of fats into glucose. So fats का भी glucose बनता है, gluconeogenesis, and contributes to hyperglycemia. Glucagon reduces cellular glucose uptake and utilization. So insulin ग्लूकोज को ब्लड में से सेल में डालता है, ग्लूकागॉन ग्लूकोज को ब्लड से सेल में डालने से रोकता है, inhibits glucose going into a cell. So blood glucose level will remain high. So which is the hypoglycemic hormone? Which hormone converts glucose into glycogen? Insulin. And which is the hyperglycemic hormone? Which hormone converts glycogen into glucose? Glycogenolysis, glucagon. So glucagon is a hyperglycemic hormone. Insulin is a hypoglycemic hormone. Glucagon causes glycogenolysis. Insulin causes glycogenesis. So these are opposite in their function. They are antagonistic in their functions. Now, समझो your blood glucose levels are neither high nor low. So you are not hypoglycemic also, you are not hyperglycemic also. You are normal glucose level, that is euglycemia. You are euglycemic, and if you are euglycemic, which means your blood glucose level is 90 to 120 milligrams per deciliter of blood. That is euglycemia, normal glucose level. Then you don't need insulin also. You don't need glucagon also. You don't need to convert glycogen into glucose also. You need not convert glucose into glycogen also. So insulin या glucagon दोनों में से एक भी जरूरत नहीं है. Then delta cells give somatostatin, and somatostatin reduces both glucagon and insulin. It will reduce both glucagon and insulin secretion. So delta cell somatostatin reduces both glucagon and insulin. And yes, somatostatin, if you remember, is a inhibitory hormone. Hypothalamus had given growth hormone, inhibiting hormone called somatostatin, which reduces growth hormone secretion. Similarly, pancreas में delta cells give somatostatin, which reduces both glucagon and insulin secretion, and it is also an inhibitory hormone. So, which is the inhibitory hormone by hypothalamus and pancreas? Somatostatin. Hypothalamus, somatostatin, growth hormone inhibiting factor, decreases growth hormone secretion. In the pancreas, somatostatin reduces insulin and glucagon secretion. And prolonged hyperglycemia, too much blood sugar level, leads to diabetes mellitus due to insufficient insulin level. अगर आपने खाना खाया, blood glucose level is high. Blood glucose level is high, but beta cells don't give insulin. Then insulin cannot be taken in by liver cells and hepatocytes and adipocytes. तो liver cells और fat cell, hepatocytes, adipocytes glucose को intake नहीं कर सकते हैं, which means the blood glucose level will become less. Your hepatocyte and adipocyte sugar levels will become less, and blood glucose level will increase. That is called hyperglycemia, and that disease is called diabetes mellitus. उसमें diabetes mellitus हो जाएगा. So insulin deficiency is a diabetes mellitus which causes hyperglycemia. अभी सबसे important, glucose cannot enter liver cells or adipocytes or other cells of the body. याद रखना, insulin to enter a cell needs, or rather glucose to enter a cell needs insulin. जब तक इंसुलिन नहीं है, ग्लूकोज किसी भी सेल के अंदर नहीं जा सकता है. So if glucose level is high in the blood, but beta cells are not giving insulin, then in the absence of insulin, glucose cannot enter a cell. And sugar levels are high in the blood, but cells are starved of glucose. Cells में glucose की कमी हो जाती है, क्योंकि insulin नहीं है. So in the absence of insulin, cellular uptake of glucose will not take place, and cells are starved of sugar. तो how will cells work? Heat तो बनानी है. So thyroxine starts converting fats in the cell into sugar, and that sugar will produce energy, heat, for maintaining your blood sugar level. So thyroxine fats को break करता है, and whenever fats break down, it produces ketone bodies. Fat metabolism produces ketone bodies, and ketone bodies accumulate in your urine and your blood, which causes diabetic ketoacidosis. Diabetic ketoacidosis, तो इस तरह से डायबिटीज डायग्नोज होता है. किसी के यूरिन में और ब्लड में अगर कीटोन बॉडीज मिल रहे हैं, it means fats are getting metabolized, and that condition is called as diabetic ketosis, and diabetic ketoacidosis. How do you treat diabetes? Diabetes is treated with hypoglycemic drugs or insulin therapy. You give drugs which decrease blood sugar level, and these are called hypoglycemic drugs. Decrease blood sugar, and they are called hypoglycemic drugs, and that is given to people suffering from something called non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, also called type 2 diabetes. टाइप 2 डायबिटीज, इसमें hypoglycemic drugs are given, and you have something called insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, which is called type 1 diabetes. ये बच्चों में बहुत कॉमन होता है. Child is born with a genetic deficiency, उसके बीटा सेल्स में से इंसुलिन सिक्रीट ही नहीं होता है. And the only way the child will survive is by giving him insulin injections, which is called as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or type 1 diabetes. If you have been normal for the whole of your life and after 40, 50 years, you are diagnosed with hyperglycemia, then you can be given hypoglycemic medicines which reduce blood sugar level. Then you are non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or type 2 diabetes. तो बच्चों में जहां इंसुलिन बनता ही नहीं है, what is that called as? Type 1 diabetes mellitus, insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Elderly people जो पूरी लाइफ नॉर्मल थे, अब उनका इंसुलिन कम हो चुका है because of degeneration of the beta cell, they can be given hypoglycemic drugs which is called as non-insulin diabetes mellitus और टाइप 2 डायबिटीज. तो ये दिया नहीं एनसीईआरटी में, बट रिमेंबर टू टाइप्स ऑफ डायबिटीज, टाइप 1 which is insulin dependent and type 2 which is non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Chalo, that was your pancreas, and then we have the gonads. Well, we have talked about this already in reproduction. The reproductive organs are testes in males and ovaries in females. Testes have Leydig cells, and Leydig cells give out androgens which are steroids. ये तो याद रखना, adrenal cortex hormones are steroids. कौन से वाले? Aldosterone, cortisol and androgens are steroids, and gonad hormones are also steroid. Estrogen, progesterone and testosterone are steroids. So adrenal cortex hormones are steroids, and gonad hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone are steroids. In other words, they are fat or cholesterol derivatives. फैट और कोलेस्ट्रॉल डेरिवेटिव. ये नीट में बहुत पूछते हैं. Which hormones are steroids? Adrenal cortex hormone and gonad hormones are steroids. They are fat derivatives. Which is the most significant androgen? Testosterone. सबसे कॉमन एंड्रोजन है टेस्टोस्टेरोन. And what do androgens do? In males, androgens stimulate development, maturation, and functions of the male reproductive organs. They develop and mature and help in the functioning of the seminiferous tubule, epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle, prostate gland, Cowper's gland, urethra. पूरे मेल रिप्रोडक्टिव सिस्टम का development, maturation, and functioning is done by testosterone. Then, testosterone stimulates seminiferous tubules for the process of spermatogenesis. Testosterone stimulates the process of spermatogenesis. Testosterone produces secondary sexual character like muscular growth. Males का muscle ज़्यादा develop होता है compared to females because of testosterone. Growth of facial hair and axillary hair. And psychologically, an aggressiveness sets in. Males become more aggressive. Females become more emotional. Females become more emotional because of estrogen and progesterone. Males become more aggressive because of testosterone. And a low pitch of voice. Your Adam's apple becomes prominent and you develop a masculine, husky, baritone voice. That is because of testosterone. Androgens also act on the central nervous system and influence the male's sexual behavior, libido. In other words, attraction for the opposite sex and a sexual attraction and a desire for sexual copulation or sexual intercourse is done by testosterone. And testosterone is also anabolic, synthetic, and affects protein and carbohydrate metabolism. टेस्टोस्टेरोन से प्रोटीन सिंथेसिस एंड कार्बोहाइड्रेट सिंथेसिस होता है. Fats get converted into proteins and carbohydrates, and the muscular development will take place. So ये हमने पूरा किया था. These are the functions of testosterone. Then you have the functions of the ovary. The ovary has two steroid hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is secreted by the developing ovarian follicle. If you remember, theca interna cells give out estrogen in the tertiary follicle and Graafian follicle. And estrogen has a role in stimulation of growth of the reproductive organs like ovaries, oviduct, uterus and vagina. तो जैसे टेस्टोस्टेरोन मेल ऑर्गन का स्टिमुलेशन, ग्रोथ एंड फंक्शनिंग करता है, ईस्ट्रोजन ओवरी, ओविडक्ट, यूट्रस और वजाइना का फंक्शनिंग करता है. It also controls female secondary sexual characters like high pitch of voice, development of mammary glands, broadening of pelvis, pubic hair, and deposition of subcutaneous fat to produce feminine structure. The voice becomes high pitch. Males may voice become low pitch because of testosterone. Females may voice becomes high pitch because of estrogen. Fats deposit in the mammary gland at puberty, and mammary glands start increasing in size because of estrogen. The pelvis becomes broader. Why should the pelvis become broader? So in the future, more surface area is available for a child to pass out during parturition. So pelvic bones, pelvic girdle becomes broader. Pubic hair develop and deposition of subcutaneous fats develop. Fats develop in the body, which will act as a source of energy for milk production in the future. Estrogen also regulates female sexual behavior, libido. In males, libido is controlled by testosterone. In females, libido is controlled by estrogen. And after ovulation, the empty Graafian follicle is converted into corpus luteum, and corpus luteum secretes progesterone. Progesterone is a progestational hormone which maintains pregnancy. Progesterone acts on the endometrium and maintains the endometrium. तो उसके ऊपर फीटस डेवलप होने लगता है, प्लेसेंटा बन जाता है. What would have happened अगर प्रोजेस्टेरोन कम हो जाएगा? एंडोमेट्रियम रप्चर हो जाएगा and the baby will abort. So you need progesterone for maintaining the endometrium. And if you remember, First 3 months, progesterone is secreted by the corpus luteum, and the last 6 months by the placenta itself. So, throughout pregnancy, progesterone levels are high, and progesterone is rightly called as the pregnancy hormone. Which is the pregnancy hormone? Progesterone is the pregnancy hormone. And progesterone acts on the mammary glands and stimulates them for milk forming apparatus, lactiferous ducts and alveoli, milk secretion and milk ejection. तो सर ये है ब्रेस्ट, और ब्रेस्ट में होते हैं स्वेट ग्लैंड्स. Progesterone acts on the sweat glands at puberty, and sweat glands at puberty get converted into lactiferous duct, ampulla, mammary duct, mammary tubules, and mammary lobes with alveoli. We have done this so many times. Who converts sweat glands into alveoli, mammary tubules, mammary lobes, lactiferous ducts, etc. That is done by progesterone. So sweat gland become milk producing apparatus. Sweat glands become milk producing apparatus. So milk producing cells and milk producing apparatus is made with the help of progesterone. Progesterone produces milk producing apparatus. So that is done by progesterone. And progesterone also helps in milk secretion and milk ejection. Actually, milk secretion is done by prolactin, but progesterone helps in milk secretion along with prolactin. Milk ejection is done by oxytocin, but progesterone helps oxytocin in milk ejection. So, these are the functions of the two hormone, estrogen and progesterone. Then we have hormones of the gastrointestinal tract. Well, we have just done it. 4 hormones: gastrin, secretin, cholecystokinin, and gastric inhibitory peptide GIP. ये अभी अभी किया था. Gastrin stimulates the gastric glands for the secretion of hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. So, gastrin stimulates gastric glands for secretion of HCl and pepsinogen. And then we have GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide, opposes gastrin and inhibits the release of gastric juice. Who secretes gastrin? Stomach. And stomach में gastrin secrete होगा, उससे HCl और pepsinogen secrete होगा, which will convert the food into chyme. But once food goes from stomach into intestine, now you don't need hydrochloric acid. So duodenum will secrete gastric inhibitory peptide, which we remember is also called as enterogastrone. And enterogastrone or gastric inhibitory peptide from duodenum will act on the stomach, and stomach पे act करेगा and will stop the release of HCl and pepsinogen. It will stop the release of HCl and pepsinogen. And then we have secretin, which acts on exocrine pancreas and stimulates secretion of water and bicarbonate ions to form pancreatic juice. If you remember, secretin acinar cells पे act करता है and उसमें bicarbonate आ जाते हैं. And acinar cells और exocrine cell में bicarbonate आ जाएंगे. Bicarbonates make the pancreatic juice become highly alkaline with a pH of 8.8. So which hormone makes the pH of pancreas highly alkaline 8.8? It is pancreatic juice. And then we have CCK, cholecystokinin, which acts on pancreas and gallbladder and stimulates the secretion of pancreatic juice and bile juice. So gallbladder is made to contract by cholecystokinin और उसमें से bile release होगा. Gallbladder में bile store होता है, it will be released into the duodenum. And pancreatic duct is made to contract and pancreatic juice will enter duodenum. Of course, bile and pancreatic juice mix together in the hepatopancreatic duct and enter duodenum via sphincter of Oddi. I hope you remember. Who contracts gallbladder to release bile? Who contracts pancreatic duct to give pancreatic juice? It is done by cholecystokinin, CCK. So that was hormones of gastrointestinal tract. Then we have hormones of the heart. The heart gives out a hormone. The atrial wall of the heart secretes a peptide hormone called as atrial natriuretic factor, ANF. Atrial natriuretic factor, it is secreted when the blood pressure increases. When your blood pressure is high, atrial natriuretic factor, ANF, is secreted during high blood pressure. It causes dilatation of the blood vessel due to which blood pressure decreases. तो सर, अगर आपका blood pressure high है, you're having high blood pressure, then ANF is secreted. Atrial natriuretic factor is secreted, and atrial natriuretic factor acts on blood vessel and causes dilatation of blood vessel. So blood vessels dilate हो जाएंगे, and as blood vessels dilate, surface area of the blood vessels will increase, and a surface area will increase. As area will increase, blood pressure will decrease. As area will increase, pressure will decrease. Pressure is inversely proportional to the area on which it acts. That it in physics. तो एरिया बढ़ जाएगा तो ब्लड प्रेशर कम हो जाएगा. And which hormone will reduce the blood pressure? Blood pressure is reduced by ANF. तो ये बहुत कॉमनली नीट में पूछते हैं. Which hormone increases blood pressure? Lots of them. As a matter of fact, सबसे पहले vasopressin, ADH, by causing vasoconstriction, will increase blood pressure. Adrenaline increases blood pressure by increasing heart rate. Thyroxine increases blood pressure by increasing heart rate. And any other hormone, if you would remember, which other hormone? Aldosterone, by absorbing sodium, increases osmolarity of blood, draws water into blood and increases blood pressure. तो ब्लड प्रेशर बढ़ाने के लिए 4 हार्मोन रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, vasopressin और ADH, adrenaline, thyroxine and aldosterone. And who decreases blood pressure? Blood pressure is decreased by atrial natriuretic factor, which causes vasodilatation. Vasodilatation. So ANF, atrial natriuretic factor, causes vasodilatation. And it is exactly opposite to vasopressin. Vasopressin, ADH, causes vasoconstriction and ANF causes vasodilatation. तो ये directly opposite है. As a matter of fact, ANF also opposes aldosterone. If you remember, aldosterone helps in the reabsorption of sodium from the urine. Aldosterone sodium को reabsorb करता है. Atrial natriuretic factor allows sodium to pass in urine. So ANF opposes aldosterone, allows sodium to pass in the urine. So less sodium means less osmolarity of blood. ब्लड में ऑस्मोलैरिटी कम हो जाएगी, तो वाटर रिटेनिंग कैपेसिटी कम हो जाएगी, and the blood pressure will decrease. And that is the reason ANF is called natriuretic factor. Natr means sodium and uretric means urine. So ANF allows sodium to pass in urine. ANF allows sodium to pass in urine. So it is rightly called as the atrial natriuretic factor. Atrial natriuretic factor. So by allowing sodium to pass in urine, it decreases blood pressure, and by causing dilatation of blood vessel, it decreases blood pressure. So ANF decreases blood pressure by dilating blood vessels. It opposes which hormone? Vasopressin or ADH, which causes vasoconstriction. By allowing sodium to pass in urine, it opposes which hormone? Aldosterone. Aldosterone absorbs sodium from the urine. ANF allows sodium to pass in urine. So which hormones decrease blood pressure? ANF. Which hormones had increased blood pressure? Vasopressin, thyroxine, adrenaline, and aldosterone. They all increase blood pressure. Which hormone decreases blood pressure? ANF, atrial natriuretic factor, secreted by the atrial wall of the heart, by the upper chambers of the heart. Chaliye. So that is the hormone secreted by the heart. Heart is an endocrine gland.